What's up, Mysterious Huntsman fans? It is Hump Day, and I can't believe I just said that because I absolutely hate that camel commercial, and I think you know the one I'm talking about. But anyway, tonight we're going to be hearing from Greyson from right here in Nashville, Tennessee, about his encounter with a possible Bigfoot up in Trenton, Kentucky, which we all know that Kentucky's got a lot going on in that area. So let's get right into it tonight. I know Greyson has a few more stories to go along with it. And let's welcome Greyson into the Mysterious Huntsman family. Hey Greyson, this is Paul with the Mysterious Huntsman podcast. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be off work for the day. And I'm just, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on at the last minute. And I hear you have some incredible stories. And one that I'm really interested in is the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch story that you may have ran into or heard up on a farm around Trenton, Kentucky. Is that right?
That is right.
Cool.
That is right.
Well, man, I'm just going to let you go at it. I mean, just tell me what happened leading up to that. And I know you said you were kind of interested in these things for a while, and you just kind of happened to run across this. What it really... and kind of like that I guess most people aren't looking for these things sometimes when they run into them, which makes me mad because I'm always looking for these things and I don't ever see or hear anything. So, and I'm going to let you get to it. So, what did you hear?
All right. Well, I mean, ever since I was, I can't remember where my first fascination with it started. I think I was about 6 or 7. And I remember in Lebanon, Tennessee, there's an antique mall. And me and my parents at the time went up there, and we're just hanging out in Lebanon, I guess, was kind of the vibe. But we pull up to this antique mall, and there's this head, this like Bigfoot-looking head thing. And I remember my dad telling me to, hey, come check this out. So I walk up, and it's this terrifying looking head. They claim it's a Bigfoot head. I think it's kind of like a person who places deer heads on the wall. I can't remember the name.
Right, a taxidermist.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a taxidermist job. But you can look it up if you type in Lebanon Antique Mall Bigfoot head. The picture will pop up, and that's a pretty cool little Tennessee Bigfoot related thing. So I think that was the time that I found out about all of it, and I was like 6 or 7, that kind of deal. So I'd always been into the subject, and my dad and I would go to the library and check out books on it and that kind of thing. And so years later, it was my band at the time. I'm a musician. And me and my buddies would talk about it, and, we were into Monster Quest at the time and into finding Bigfoot and just kind of loosely into all of this stuff. And I remember around this time, I think late September-ish, I had the idea. I was like, well, we should go, let's look for it, or let's try to find, see what we run into. Just joking, just kind of, just for fun, just to see what happens. And my bass player at the time, I won't give his name, but he knows who he is. His grandparents own this like farmhouse type deal out in Trenton, Kentucky. And Trenton is, I would say, about 60 miles like northwest of Nashville. I know Adams is in between. Adams, Tennessee, with the Dulwich and all that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he's he's into the idea, and he talks to his parents about it, and they think we sound ridiculous. They're like, you guys are not gonna find anything, but sure, let's do it. It's a fun little place, just like I said, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's surrounded, so there's a big old backyard. And then behind that, there's like a line of trees. And then behind that is like a field, or like maybe was a cornfield, but was already like a harvest of like farm field type deal. And I would say about a half a mile away were some train tracks. And so yeah, me and him and our other friend and his sister and his dad and mom and grandparents all go up there just for the night or for the weekend kind of thing. And we go and wait till it gets dark out, and you know, we're all kind of figuring out what we're going to do, and we had watched the shows, so it's like, all right, let's, you know, we're gonna do some howls, and we had 2 2x4s, and then we also brought a ham with us because we were like, well, if we hear anything, maybe like we'll leave something out, and see what happens. So all us kids go out. So me, him, our friend, and his sister all go outside. And I would say we're about 10 yards out in the backyard. And we try a howl. And we get nothing back. And we're kind of, you know, we aren't taking it seriously. I mean, we're kind of spooked because we're, again, in the middle of nowhere. And it's dark on this property. I mean, it's an old property. I would say the house is probably from the late 1800s. I mean, it's an old, like, refinished farmhouse kind of deal. And so we're standing there, and we get nothing. And we're like, all right, well, let's try a couple wood knocks and see what happens. So we're all standing there, and I take these 2 2x4s, and I go, and then 5 to 10 seconds later, we hear back, and we all ran so fast back to the house. We just dropped everything and ran because it was there. We got something back that we were not ready to hear or expecting to hear, and it was loud. I mean, it wasn't like a faint crackback kind of deal. It was like really responding to whatever we had done. And so we ran back to the house and ran inside and got his parents and, you know, hey, like, is everyone in here? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, well, we just heard something back. And they're laughing at us, not believing, like, all right, sure, kind of deal. And so got a response back, and we still had the ham. So his dad was like, all right, well, let's go walk the wooded, like, line and take it to the field, and, you know, let's see if we hear anything, or we'll see if we see something. So we're all kind of just, you know, trooping behind him and being really quiet and listening, and I remember when we were walking, I was so scared. I was like, we're gonna see something. It's just gonna happen, because they didn't believe us, but every one of us ran, and we all looked off and scared. So we're following him, and we finally reach the field part, and we have this ham. Hadn't seen anything else, didn't hear anything. His dad swears that none of them were out there. But we opened this ham up a little bit, and just to the point, because it had plastic wrap around it. So we opened it enough to where if you had opposable thumbs, like, you would have to rip it open kind of deal.
Right.
And set it down and leave it for the night and walk back to the house. And we were all, I think we were all pretty satisfied at that point. You know, we were just kids looking for fun and really not thinking we were going to hear anything or see anything along those lines. So the next morning, it's like, all right, well, let's check it out. Let's see if the ham is still there. So we go out, and the ham is gone. The plastic wrap is still there, and it's not chewed up. Like, it's not like a coyote or a fox or anything like that came by and ripped it to shreds and took the ham. And also, at that point, I kind of think a coyote or a wolf or whatever would just kind of run off with it. I don't think they would take the time to take it out and then walk away with it. I think they would pick it up and go as they went. So yeah, like the plastic wrap was there. It wasn't chewed up. And then about like 5 feet, 10 feet next to it, there's this, what to me looks like a footprint. And I sent you a picture of it for posting. And it's a left foot, and like from the picture, like you can see like the sun, the shadow of the sun sits into it. So it was deep, and I remember it being pretty deep. Like it didn't look like a normal footprint, and it looked bigger than a normal footprint. And you can kind of see the toes in it. And we're in the middle of nowhere, so I couldn't tell you who was out in their field barefoot at 1 a.m. in nowhere, Kentucky. You know, it was just kind of this weird thing. And maybe there are. I mean, Kentucky's kind of a weird state. maybe they were. So,
well, I got to ask. Let me ask you real quick.
Yeah.
Did you notice anything about the ground? Was it because the footprint itself is pretty deeply impressed into the ground?
Yes.
Was the ground soft, or had it just rained, or what can you tell me about the actual ground?
Well, so yeah, when we drove up that night, there was no rain. It was just kind of I remember because I'm 23 now, and I was like 16-ish then. So it was some time ago, but I remember it being like, you know, just kind of like a crisp fall night. It wasn't cold, and it wasn't rainy, but, you know, kind of like a farm dew kind of feel, but not super moist or anything like that. And that field, I remember because we went shooting in the next day, just shooting clay pigeons, and it wasn't soft like dirt that was ready for planting. I mean, you could tell it had been dried up,
right,
and like cracked and that kind of deal. Yeah, I mean, and that picture shows it. Like it's in the ground, whatever that imprint is.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it was had to be heavy enough to make that type of depression. It almost looks to be about an inch deep, or maybe even a little deeper, and that's some serious weight to put that kind of impression into like hard soil.
Right. And I remember, I do remember making like mental note of like, are my shoes going into the ground, and not seeing like you could see like the top of my shoe print, but it's not like my foot was making an impression.
Right.
Or anything like that. And maybe it's a dragged bear foot, but I don't think so. I mean, you can tell a bear print, and it's really easy to identify too, like a bear print that drags at all. You can see like where the bottom of its foot is in the drag. And also, there was no other prints like close to it. I remember seeing it's like there's the left one, and where the right would have been forward, you could see like a scuffle, but it wasn't as clear as that. So I didn't take a picture, and I kind of just don't count it because it's like, well, it's not really evident. But that one was just like, wow, something was there.
About how long do you think it was?
Oh, I would say, I'm trying to think of my inches. I would say about like 9 to 11 inches roughly.
Okay.
12 maybe. Because and part of my thinking, I know this sounds kind of ridiculous, but one idea I had, and I've thought about since all of this, maybe it was a juvenile, you know, and maybe it was just like a younger one. If it was, maybe it was younger, and just kind of curious, because there was no scream or growl or anything like that. Like I said, it was just the knock back, which would make sense to me as to maybe why it wasn't even deeper than it already was. But it's still pretty deep.
Yeah, it was.
All things considered.
Do you know if they have any other livestock on the area? Or is it fenced in? Do they have any kind of like cattle or anything in the area?
No cattle. Train tracks nearby, and I've heard that they follow like train tracks. I've heard they follow power lines. the river, like waterways, obviously.
Yeah, and you hear that a lot for some reason. There a lot of accounts are around train tracks and around riverbeds and power lines for some reason. And I guess maybe it's almost like the path of least resistance, but you think they'd stay away from like those straight line of sight things.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. Is it's just like it would make sense to me that there would be something like that. And that's part of why we went out there. I mean, we were half serious and searching for something, but just the actuality of something happening or finding the footprint or the ham being gone and the plastic being left. Again, it not being chewed up tells me a lot.
Yeah, that is.
It was clearly opened. Could have been a raccoon, could have been, or whatever else that stature has opposable thumbs. No livestock. I mean, definitely deer in the area for sure. And I've heard that they follow herds of deer just in terms of food, and they know where the water source is.
Right,
So,
and that whole area, that southwestern part of Kentucky, Fort Campbell on up to Hopkinsville, and even moving around into the Mammoth Cave area, there's been a lot of reports for literally hundreds of years. It's kind of above. I think it's above the LBL, the Land Between the Lakes, which also has a ton of reports. And I've been invited to come up there with another a team real soon. I think in the fall I'm going to go up there and hang out with these guys. They're going to do like a night investigation or night hunt or camp and just kind of see what they see or hear around there. So, but for literally hundreds of years there have been reports. And I know you and I were talking earlier about, what if just one of these reports are true? I mean, and I was thinking about that the other night, and you think about, and I don't know. I'm not saying I believe either way. I just know I can't discount the hundreds of years and the literally thousands of witness testimony, either by Native Americans all the way through to present time. Thousands of reports of people seeing something that they can't explain in the woods. And if just one of those is true, then it's amazing,
Right. And I think it's, just the history alone. I mean, if you looking at just the thousands of people, including presidents, the presidents very well respected. What was it, Roosevelt?
Yeah, absolutely. It was Roosevelt.
Yeah. I mean, he has a vivid account of all of that. I have a friend who was in town, and she had a friend with her who was Native American, and the subject was brought up. And I asked, I was like, do all Native tribes believe in Sasquatch? And she was like, oh yeah. I mean, there's just no doubt there. It's well accepted. It's part of the heritage. It's part of the culture. They know what they are. And it's amazing to me how quick people are to write people off about it. Because like you said, if even one of these thousands of accounts is true, I mean, that should tell you something. And on top of that, another thing I've thought about is all the missing persons reports in national parks every year. There's hundreds. And they can't all be serial killers. They can't all be accidental deaths. They can't all be just lost and never found. I mean, some of these people, I think for sure some of these people have been picked up or taken away by this thing. Because I don't think Sasquatch or Bigfoot, I'm not saying it's an evil entity, but I think they have their boiling point, and I think sometimes people, some unfortunately maybe meet that. Like, I think you should be very careful in terms of seeking these things out. And when I think about it now, it's really kind of dumb that we were just all standing out there alone. Because say it was real and had this thing charged us, or or who knows what. I mean, we didn't have a gun, and we weren't
I'm,
prepared or.
I'm not sure
or
if these things are real and if some of the reports are true. I'm not sure a gun would do anybody any good. You know?
no, 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 no. And so that's the guy whose grandparents' place it is. He and we talked recently about going out there, and I asked him. I was like, "Yeah, I gotta know. Have you asked your dad since? Like, if they were messing with us, if they were, pulling a big one or anything like that?" And he says no. They were really all sitting inside. So we've thought about going out again just for a couple nights and just seeing what happens for the sake of seeing. But yeah, I mean, as far as I know, what we heard, I mean, it didn't sound like antlers. It didn't sound like a gunshot in the distance. It didn't sound like a branch breaking. It was a very distinct knock response type deal. And it freaked us out, man. And it's funny. One of the kids who was with us, to this day, he denies it. He's like, no way, man. And I'm like, but you ran. You ran faster than all of us. And he's like, yeah.
Right.
But no, there's nowhere. There's nowhere.
Well, I grew up in South Alabama, and I literally in a town, or just even outside the town, of about 2,000 people. So, I mean, all I had to do was play in the woods. So I grew up, and I grew up in the woods, and I remember I've heard these knocks before. I've never heard or seen anything else, but I've heard these knocks before, and I've heard them also in recent years when we, the team and I go out and listen, and we just try to see what we can hear or see. And I don't know what's making that noise. I mean, there's nothing in the woods that can actually pick up a stick or two rocks or whatever and make that sound. And the sound that you imitated is really close. It's just like a clear. It's almost like a baseball bat hitting.
Right.
It's a distinct
That's
sound,
it.
and you never.
That's it.
And you won't forget it. And but the sound you made is really close to it, and I don't know what's doing that. And I know last year I was. I think I was down in an area called Evergreen, Alabama, which they've been having a lot of reports. And I went down to meet with a witness, and I think she's going to be coming on the show soon. And I went, and within 5 minutes of meeting her and her family out, back behind her property that bumps into a swamp, within 5 minutes of me pulling up and introducing myself, we hear this. It is a literal tree crashing. And
wow.
I mean, we know what a tree landing in the forest sounds like, but
right.
this thing sounded like it was almost slammed to the ground. It was a distinct crack, and you heard like a really big tree just, limb by limb crashing through other limbs, and it hit the ground. And my eyes got big as saucers, and the first thing she said was, "Yeah." She said, "You see, we hear this all the time." And I was like, wow. And as the night went on, we were sitting by the campfire, and we're listening and not talk. I don't like to talk a lot. I don't like to go out there and hit trees and howls and all this kind of stuff, because the best thing you can do sometimes is just be there and
absolutely
and just listen. And we heard mumbling, just low talking. You can't make out the words, but we heard the mumbling through the swamp area there, and it's literal swamp. Nobody's in their right mind is going to be out there. She said that place is littered with moccasins, and
right.
Nobody's going to be out there. And
the danger of being in the woods too. I mean, that's the thing on top of everything else.
Right.
That's
yeah.
Not to cut you off.
But no, that was just one of my few encounters that I really can't explain, honestly. And like I said, I don't know where I stand with it. I know that I can't discount witness testimony, because I've heard research and spoken with conservation officers, police officers. I mean, you have credible witnesses that are out there, not looking for these things, but they run across something, that is amazing. And I believe that they've seen something. Now, what it is, I don't know. But it just intrigues me so much that, I mean, that's why I've started this podcast recently. I want to hear more, and I want to get out there more and see what I can find. But I didn't. Well, that was a long story. I didn't mean to take away from your story, but I just.
No. I like hearing your background on it. I mean, I just, even like what you were saying about the sounds, as a musician, as what I do requires me to listen, even when I feel like talking too much.
No, go for it.
But you know, it's like when you hear things, it's and when that's what you do. I mean, everyone listens to a certain degree, but there's also a presence of how much you are listening. And like you said, like when a tree is naturally falling, you can hear it. You can just hear it, like it's the way it goes down. When something is forcibly pushing a tree down, that's a different thing. Like when a crane is pulling a tree down, or when people are pulling one down with a rope, kind of deal.
Right.
There's a force to it, and that's the other thing. What or who can pick up something and crack it against? Because it's like that. It sounds like a baseball bat. I think you nailed it with that. And that's the thing, is like now, like my older self, I would go out and just be quiet now. And I kind of think we just got lucky that night. I think maybe us, a bunch of kids standing out there probably helped our case. You know, we're not these big, burly men with guns. And I think they know what guns are. I have a good feeling a lot of them do. And when you tell people that, they think you're totally ridiculous. But it's like, well, look, these things have been around for a long time. I mean, they know. It's not like guns just came around. Guns have been around for a very long time. And I think they can kind of differentiate between threat or not. And so I think, and that's part of what makes me think, well, maybe juvenile, because it was kind of, maybe it's playing with us, or it's curious, or it's kind of, it's checking you out too. You know, it's
right.
not, it's making it, hey, I'm here, I'm not showing myself, kind of thing. But yeah, the listening part of it, I think, is really, really key. Because when you hear it, or when you hear the mumbling, like I've heard it described as samurai chatter, like that kind of deal. Like it's a whole, like they're talking. There's a dialect to it, but you can't make it out. But there's conversing and understanding.
Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't heard it, but I've heard of that.
Yeah. And to think that means, all right, well, there's an intelligence going on there. I mean, there's enough awareness within whatever they are to know what you are and to know what they may be talking about. If so, I'm just I'm speculating at this point. I don't know the answers, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, nobody does, and it is all just conjecture and speculation at this point. And I mean, everybody has an opinion, which is fine. And like I said, I'm still, I'm on the fence. I don't know where I stand with it. I want to believe, because it's a cool concept, but I'm former law enforcement, and for me to hear witness testimony, and I've developed a good meter over the years when I'm talking to someone. I can kind of tell if they're lying or not, if they're fabricating, or if they're trying to create a story. And I've spoken with some very credible people that I believe, and it blows my mind that I'm sitting here listening to you tell me this awesome, not you, but I'm just saying, I'm listening to people telling me these awesome stories of actually physically seeing this upright bipedal walking creature that's not supposed to be there. And it's just, it's blowing my mind that I believe them, that they've seen they believe that they've seen something. And it just blows my mind. And
Well, and not a bear. I mean, come on, all these people who are, and not to diss any non-believers. I get it. It's probably better to be more on the fence than be more convinced about it, really. But all these people I'll mention or we'll have deep conversations at like a party or whatever. And, well, maybe it was a bear. Maybe it was a bear. Maybe it was a bear. Yeah, maybe. And bears are known to run on 2 feet. They can do that, or they walk on 2 feet. But there's a difference between a 12-foot, 10-foot, 9-foot humanoid-looking creature than just a bear.
well, yeah, and the bears are awkward. Bears are awkward when they run and when they walk. They look nothing like a human.
And you hear fluidity with Bigfoot. You hear that word a lot. A very fluid-like motion. Nothing was stopping it. It wasn't slowing down. Especially when you hear about them going through the woods.
Right.
I mean, just how they're there and they're not. And bears, like, the awkward thing. Or you hear it. And with Bigfoot, you hear it, but it's a prominent hearing it. I mean, you hear it. It's there. And when it's gone, it's just gone.
Right. And that leads me to, and I'm glad we're able to bounce ideas off each other, because I haven't had a lot of people on with the Bigfoot stories. A lot of it has been the UFO stuff or the unexplained lights or the haunted type stories. And I mean, I love as many Bigfoot stories as I can get. I love it. And I completely lost my train of thought where I was going with that. But I totally forgot. But I hope that you tune in to this coming Sunday night, because I'm going to have a journalist on from down in that part, Evergreen, Alabama, and he writes an article pretty frequently about all the strange going-ons in that area, and you're going to be amazed at what he tells us, because he's taken accounts from people in the area that have actually seen these things, and there's so much that goes on down there, and I can't wait to have him on. But it'll be Sunday night, unless we get our schedules mixed up. It'll be this Sunday night if you're able to tune in.
Absolutely, man. I'd love to hear that.
And I wish I could remember my original train of thought earlier, but no, it's speaking of, you said that they just seem to disappear, and there's kind of and we never find bodies, and I hear this, same old stories. Well, how come no one's ever shot one, found one,
right.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah. There's a big, and I know you've heard this theory, but there's a big kind of movement going on that these things could be completely supernatural, or check. Yeah. You may want to check into some of these guys that are speaking now about the fallen angels, the Nephilim.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you're bringing this one up. Yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead. What you got?
Well, I have a friend he's like the most realistic person I know. Different buddy, but also a school friend growing up, and music buddy, and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And just the most very bare bone realistic dude. Like, pisses people off with how blunt he can be. And I love him. We're good. We're good pals. I'm gonna get him to listen to this for sure. He'll appreciate it. But growing up, he's always been he digs deep. He's always been into digging deep, whatever topic it is, whether it's music or religion or politics or you name it. And I wouldn't say conspiracy guy. He's not really. He doesn't go too far, but he questions things and questions everything. Right. But he, as of recent, he's really embraced his Christianity and his religion, and I'm cheering him on. Hey, I got you, buddy. What do you got? And so we bring up Bigfoot, and he's like, I think I have some sort of explanation for you. And I was like, well, what do you think? And that's what he thinks it's fallen angel time. Mm-hmm. And he's told me about a lot of it. and I had heard it before, but he and I have had really good, deep conversations, and he's convinced they're real, and he's convinced that maybe that could be what we're looking at. I think it is in biblical, because a lot of people who are looking for the middle of the road answer, funny enough, a lot of times seem to be like semi or full on religious type people, and they want to know, all right, if these things are what people say they are, then where is the biblical explanation for it? And when you look into Nephilim or fallen angels, hey, like the description's really not that far off. And so it ends up being this kind of coin toss of like, well, maybe. But so he and I have talked length about it, and he's convinced, just from his religious point of view, that they do exist and that is what they are to him. And this is someone who's not even really into Bigfoot. He's not like you and I are, where it's like just a fascination with the subject. But then he started getting into that side of it, and he was like, I think you're onto something. So he gave me some credit. But yeah, could be possible explanations for sure.
Well, yeah, and like I said, nobody really knows, and I'm down to listen to anybody's theory or explanation. So it's pretty incredible. I mean, I don't know I think if it were a real, flesh and blood creature, it would have to be super, apex predator top, predator in the forest and super smart to completely stay hid from us and survive. Mm-hmm. And I want to believe that, but then again, like you said, there's so many things that are kind of leading toward it being maybe possible supernatural or spiritual. It's just really, I don't know where to go with it, honestly.
Right, or you hear like interdimensional a lot now. Like that's the thing that's been coming up. Like, well, maybe they're, and then you bring that up to people who ask you that, like who will ask you, well, what are they? And you bring up that theory, and that's where you can, so you start to lose certain people. But it's hard to explain. Like, well, where are the bodies, or why haven't we got one? I mean, there are laws in certain states, and you can find them if you go online and look them up. There are law, or it is law that if you shoot and kill one, I think I read, like $5,000 or maybe 5 years or something like that. And I've yet to hear anything about that. But that's a thing in certain states. And yeah, I mean, what they could be, man, I don't know. I mean, because it does, the accounts that you read or certain pictures that just can't be proven otherwise. I mean, what is it? What are we looking at? And there's something there. People are seeing something. So
right.
I think I'd stand probably more towards the animal point of view of like, hey, this is what this thing does. This is what they do. They don't want to see you, and they know the woods better than you do. That's where they live. That is their home. And humans with this small-minded approach of, well, we can go in and find one and bag one and show it off, and I mean, no. They're if they are what I think they are, I think they're very intelligent. I think they deserve more credit in terms of how smart they actually are.
Right.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, we may never know. I hope we do,
I hope we do.
and speaking of things that we really still don't know anything about, I know you've mentioned to me that you saw an unidentified, well, let's just say a UFO. You had an encounter with a light or an unidentified object that you couldn't explain, actually here in Nashville. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this was about, like 4 years later. So about about 2 years ago, I think, like 2 to 2.5, and same buddies, but this time it was a guy who played drums in that band, and we had just finished up band practice, and he and I were cruising around post practice. We were about to like go out of town for the first time for a few days, and I think we were kind of getting our heads wrapped around that and just talking band business stuff, you know. And excuse me. And I would say it was around like midnight, 12:30, and we're driving, talking, and finally he pulls up to my house, and I get out and say my goodbyes, and I walk in, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna have a cigarette, and then I'm gonna go to bed. So grab a cigarette, and then I walk to our back porch. And mind you, like, we live in Nashville city limits. Like, I'm in the city. So, like, light pollution's a thing. Planes are a thing. Helicopters are a thing. These, you know, things I've seen and heard my whole life. I know what they are. Like, I can hear the train from my window from, like, nearby train tracks. So, like, I know what things are.
Right,
For
right.
the most part in town. I'm familiarized. And so I walk out to our back porch, and I light the cigarette. And it was a clear night. Like, it wasn't rainy. It wasn't windy. So there was no sound at all. And I'm smoking, and I've never been, I've always been open-minded about aliens or UFOs. Like, I don't write it off at all. Probably definitely a thing. And I look up, and if you took a triangle, like an obtuse triangle, and took the bottom line out of it, and then in place of the lines added orange orbs, in like several, not like two, one in the middle and then another two. Like they were all connected, kind of deal. And it's like 40 yards above me, about, or 50 yards. It was higher than a helicopter and lower than an airplane. That's the best way I could say it.
Okay.
And it wasn't flashing, and there was no sound at all. And I look up, and this thing, it just goes by, like within a span of 10 seconds. And I remember I took my phone out, and you couldn't even get it on camera because it was like a dim orange glow orb deal, and like 7 or 8 orbs connected, and it just floats by. And I tossed my cigarette and ran in the house, and then immediately texted my drummer. I was like, "Hey, I just saw a UFO. I'm texting you this just for proof, at that point." And then I ran upstairs and woke my sister up, and I was like, "Hey, I just saw a UFO. Wake up." And she's always she's into this kind of stuff, but she's not like as deep as I go about it. And I'm like, "Let's go, let's see if it's still there." I mean, she was excited. She was like, "What? Really?" Like, "No way." I was freaked out. So again, the Bigfoot thing, I guess, is more comfortable for me to wrap my head around. But the idea of like accidentally seeing a UFO, I never thought I could. And so I wake her up, and we go back downstairs out to the back porch, and there's nothing there. But that's what I saw. I mean, it was not a plane. There's no way it was a plane. You know what a plane sounds like when it's pretty close by. And even from afar, you can see planes in the sky very, very clearly and tell, oh, that's a plane. It only has like 3 or 4 lights. It seems like it's a plane. But this thing, like I said, it was connected orbs and just kind of floats by. Like, it was a very gradual motion, but like slower than a helicopter, faster than an airplane. That's the way I could say it. And yeah, that's what I got for you on that one. To this day, I still think about it. I'm pretty lucky that I got to see that, if that's what it was. Now, could it be like secret airbase air equipment? Maybe. I don't know. It wasn't a drone, though. I'll say that, because it wasn't it was like pre-drone craze, and I've driven around town. Like I go on drives a lot, especially like in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll see drones at night and see people flying their drones, and you can just kind of tell like they're stable in the air, and the lighting on them is just different. So maybe it's a triangle-shaped drone, maybe, but I don't know, man. Yeah, I've never seen anything like it before or since. So
Yeah,
that's what I got for you on that.
no, that's very interesting. I mean, I would encourage you I think my last episode that I put up, you may want to check it out. It's retired Staff Sergeant Jim Peniston, in his account with in Rendlesham Forest incident, Bentwaters over in England in 1980.
Okay.
They had a big scene happen where a whole squadron of these MPs, including Jim Peniston, saw this thing land in the forest, and it's been on every show you can imagine since the 80s. You know, it's probably one of the more highly documented military cases involving an unidentified object. And he touched this thing, but go back and listen to his account.
He touched it.
Yeah, he touched it, and
Wow.
just check out his
Wow.
account. I mean, it's like it almost may be shaped similar to what you saw, and
Okay.
also again with the glowing lights and making no sound whatsoever. Or if any,
And I should specify, it wasn't even like they were lights, you know? It was orb deals, but not like orbs that are described often when people see Bigfoot. Like, you'll hear that one a lot.
right?
Yeah, and we saw glowing orbs. Or you hear UFO reports along with a Bigfoot report. Like, they're simultaneous at times. But this, I just for clarification for everyone, not lights. Definitely not, like, no blinking, no flashing, and not bright enough to constitute
Well, yeah, and that's
a light. It was just weird, like orbs connected.
Yeah, and that's what made me bring up his account, because he said they weren't like lights. Any lights he had seen, it was almost like it was in the craft, but it wasn't, or it was in it, but it's almost like it was kind of almost organically in the craft, if that makes sense.
Right.
And
Right,
it was
yeah.
it was causing its own light, but it really wasn't a light like he had ever seen. So I was just gonna bring that up to you.
It was. I'll leave it at, like, it was strange, and I remember when I went to bed that night, I closed my blinds and I threw the covers over my face, because I was just, when you're not, I mean, I can't imagine. See, that's my reaction to seeing a UFO, or what I believe to be a UFO, and because I mean, I can't tell you what it was.
Well, I mean. By pure definition, you saw a UFO, because I mean, all that is just an acronym for unidentified flying object, and
Right.
so you saw something you couldn't explain, and I get it, and in the military now has their own classification called UAPs, so they're kind of bringing that term out, an unidentified aerial phenomenon.
I've been hearing that one recently.
Yeah, and check it out. They've just released. They're saying now that, so the USS Nimitz encounter, and a lot of the videos here lately, the Go Fast video, the Tic Tac, the videos that the pilots are releasing recently. I think it was just in the New York Times the other day, or it's all over the news right now. I mean, even
That's
as
right.
of today, saying that
the dude from Blink-182.
Oh yeah,
What's his name?
Tom DeLonge.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
I follow his stuff a little bit, and I just saw his post about that today. And I was like,
good.
Wow.
Yeah,
All right.
that's amazing. I mean, we're in amazing times right now, and I don't really know what that means. And there again, this is another phenomenon. I don't know where I stand, but it's incredible that the government and military now are coming forward and say, okay, well, here these are. We have trained pilots seeing these things, and they are definitely classified as, unidentified aerial phenomenon. We don't know what they are.
Right.
And I think they're concerned about that.
Well, and I think for the sake of Bigfoot and UFOs, because you hear this question a lot of all right, well, if they know about it, why don't they say anything? And I think they do know about it, but if you tell the United States alone that, hey y'all, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, it's real, so are aliens, or so are UFOs. I mean, that could go wrong. That could be. I mean, who knows? It could be apocalyptic times for people if that was in the headline. You never really know. Or you have these backcountry type people who are like, well, I'm gonna go get me one of them. So it could go a lot of wrong ways, I think, if you just came out and just told people. I do think it's got to be kind of like a slow introduction process, along with, hey, the logging industry makes a lot of money off of being in the woods. And if I found out as a logger that, hey, these things are real, watch out. I mean, there goes a whole industry right there if you're not careful, or just certain aspects. And you'll tell certain people this, and they'll laugh. They think it's kind of funny, but it's hey, this, I don't know. I mean, that could be part of this whole kind of thing. But I think finally some sort of acknowledgement from the government and, hey, from the Navy, that's a pretty big endorsement.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
It's
a very big deal. And I hope one day people will say, hey, he's been telling us for years, but we didn't believe him, so he was right. That's all I'm waiting on. Nah, but hey, man, I'm not going to keep you long. I definitely want to have you back, and I know you've got some more stories, and plus we can bounce ideas off each other again. It's been great talking to you, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, man. I thank you for having me on, and thanks for letting me ramble on. I appreciate it.
Anytime. You have my information, and just tune in, and if you hear something that grabs your attention, shoot me a text or whatever and say, hey, I may know something about this. I mean, I don't, anybody's welcome to call back at any time, and let's see if we can postulate or theorize some more.
Yeah. Yeah. One last thing I would say is there's a website, and so I was trying to find Trenton, Kentucky Bigfoot sightings. And there is a website called Kentucky Bigfoot. And you can look at, it takes you to all the counties. And I think the county for Trenton is Todd County.
Okay.
But there's nothing there. But, I mean, I think I was, reading that Kentucky has over 400 Bigfoot sightings, which is crazy. That's a lot. But, yeah, I just thought I'd say that for your listeners, if we have any Kentucky folks or northern Tennessee folks, check it out.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that, and I'll check it out as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, Till, if you have any friends that want to come on the show and tell me their story, I mean, you can send them my way, or you can tell them, check out my new website, mysteriousHuntsman.com.
All right. Yeah, man. I mean, I come from people who got open minds. So if I hear something, I'll be sure to let you know, for sure.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good, man. Well,
all right, thanks, Paul.
No, thank you, Greyson, and let's stay in touch, dude.
Sounds good.
All right.
Good. Have a good one, man.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
And that wraps up this episode of Mysterious Huntsman. Big thanks to Greyson for coming on and telling us his stories, and he's got a lot of ideas and a lot of theories, and he's right. Just got to have an open mind on a lot of this stuff. Whether you believe in it or not, it's good to just listen to everyone's point of view. And that's the whole reason I created this podcast, just to give everyone a safe platform to come on and tell their story without fear of judgment or ridicule. But there again, listeners, if you have any encounter or a strange anything that happened to you and you'd like to be a guest on the show, please hit me up. You can reach me at my email, mysteriousHuntsman@gmail.com, or check out my new website, mysterioushunsman.com. It is a direct link to all the podcasts on here without searching for different platforms. But it's a wrap, and can't wait till Sunday night. We're going to have a special guest on, and just take care, guys. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.